Bulunaka and welcome to For the Record. Tonight on the show we're talking about the World Consumer Rights Day, and in studio with us we have the Chief Executive of Consumer Council of Fiji, Premila Kumar, and from Diabetes Fiji, Dr. Wahid Khan. Why, you ask? Well, it's a very valid reason. The theme for this year's World Consumer Rights Day is a consumer's right to healthy food. Healthy foods, of course, referring to a lot of the processed foods that we get today, and whether we understand what's on the labels and how nutritious these meals are. And we'll get right into it. First of all, Premila and Dr. Khan, thank you for being on the show with us tonight. Of course, very pertinent theme for this year's World Consumer Rights Day, a consumer's right to healthy food, especially in this day and age when a lot of people rely on processed food and they don't actually know what's in it or how nutritious it is at the end of the day. Premila, from the Council's point of view, I'd like to find out why or in what area we need to make a push so that consumers do get healthy foods.
From the Council's perspective, when I talk about the Council's perspective, this is in total all the consumer movement globally is expecting a change in the food label. What the consumer movement is saying, it's all good. The food nutrition label is on the food items. But the question is, can people understand? Do you understand what it means? And generally it's found that it's just a requirement which most food industry has met because it's required under the Food Safety Act. So they have put the label, but whether that label is making sense to the very people who are buying the food products is not taken into consideration. So there is a push from the global movement that whatever information is on the food labels must be understood not only by educated consumers, but even those who are less educated.
Well, fair enough. It's just a label at the end of the day.
Correct, because as you know, consumers have right to information. And that is the basis on which the consumer movement works. In other words, all those traders and service providers who are selling goods and services, only they have the information, not the people who are buying. We would love to have that goods or services, but we don't know how it works or what it's all about. So from the right to information perspective, there is a call for a change in the food labeling so that people can understand. And at the same time, there is also a call for WHO to look at this issue more seriously, and they're asking for a global convention on healthy diets. Because over the years, we are not seeing any decrease in non-communicable diseases. Not a single country has succeeded, but what we can see is increase in that area. So if governments have failed, the food industry is not doing what it's supposed to do, then obviously there'll be the very people who are affected, they need to come on the scene and say, hey, but we want this change.
Non-communicable diseases you mentioned, and that's where Diabetes Fiji ties into this whole theme of World Consumer Rights Day. Dr. Khan, people not reading labels, what does that have to do in relation to diabetes?
Okay, it's not only reading labels, not understanding the labels. The labels are such tiny, they're in such small figures that you can't even see properly. I mean, you need to change your glasses if you're wearing glasses to go and put lens there and see the labels properly. And the nutrition information that is put there is not at all conducive towards a proper diet for people. If I'm a diabetic, I want to know how much of carbohydrate I'm taking in a meal or a off-the-shelf article that I'm picking up. If I'm a diabetic, I want to know what's the level of the cholesterol is in there, whether there's good cholesterol or bad cholesterol, you know. And it has to be obviously obvious to you that, hey, it's there, you know. It should be in writing, in a manner that it's clearly legible to me what I am going to take. As it is, you know, there is a paucity of materials for the diabetic. And I'm not talking only diabetics. I'm talking about NCDs too, because NCD diabetes go together. Be so mad that I head the Diabetes Foundation, Diabetes Fiji, but my interest also is NCDs because we see a plethora of other activities, other illnesses which surround. Now, if you are a diabetic, you have a high cholesterol level, you have a high blood pressure problem, you end up with kidney failure, you can end up with heart failure, and together with that you have heart attacks, you know. So the majority of my patients who are diabetic or who are diabetic have a tendency to other comorbidities, co-illnesses. So it's very essential for us to make sure that they have the right kind of food in the right constituent of food. And they're able to make the decision, okay, this is not good for me, I am not taking this material, I will opt for something much more better for me.
Do consumers actually read the labels? How many people go into the supermarket, pick up a product, and first look at what's in it? A lot of people, I would say, pick it up, put it in the shopping cart, pay for it, take it home.
Well, put it this way, why people don't read label? That is the question. The reason why they don't read the label, because they can't understand the label. How many people know what is sodium? You know, all those jargons that are used on the label, people can't understand that. And in the current form, the information is just provided, as I said, because it meets the legal requirement. Now we have to go beyond that. It's not a question of meeting the legal requirements. Even if the legal requirements were there, it was there for a purpose. And the purpose was for people to know. So we need to now focus on the purpose. Do people know? Is that the reason why they don't pick up or rather read the label? Now how can we make them read the label? And there's a lot of changes happening around the globe in that case. For example, can we interpret the label already and put it in a form that I can trust that a nutritionist or some expert has interpreted and the information is right there? I can see it at a glance and say, hey, this is good for me. So this is the change we require. And it's going to be a long process.
All right, and on that note, we need to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about World Consumer Rights Day, which is being celebrated around the world today, and the theme is a consumer's right to healthy food. In Fiji's context, talking about the risk of diabetes and non-communicable diseases due to people's choice of foods, but more so to do with the product labeling and the ambiguity of the information that's contained in those labels. Dr. Khan, looking at it from a consumer's perspective, I would say that people, when they go into a supermarket and they pick up an item, let's say for example a fizzy drink, there's been talk about it, people know it's unhealthy, contains too many sugars. A lot of people do still buy it knowing that information. Lifestyle choice, not a labeling, or mislabeling or deliberate withholding of information.
I think I can live with that. I can live with the fact that people have a choice, and they have a right to make a choice. But I can't live with the fact that they're not given the right kind of information as to what is contained within. Say, for example, a glass of a very fizzy drink may contain about 7 teaspoons of sugar.
A glass?
Yes.
Something of this size.
And to burn it off, you got to walk for about 1 hour and 10 minutes. Now, if this information was available to you, why would you take that fizzy drink? Because you're not going to work for 1 hour and 10 minutes just to burn that calories that you're taking. So it is necessary for us to give credence to the fact that, okay, you have a right, but your choice has to be tempered properly. And that is an area of behavior change that I think which is the next phase of development in managing the NCDs we are looking at.
So far as the companies are concerned, as you mentioned earlier, Premila, they are meeting their legal requirement to have a nutrition label. They would say, look, we're abiding by the law, we're doing what's required of us. Why are you pushing this on us now? Are you talking about a social responsibility to the consumers on part of these companies?
It's not a question of course it's a social responsibility on the part of the company, but I think it's the right to information. We need clear information, and if that information is for the public, consumption, then definitely public should understand. It is not a question of the health officials saying, well, this is great, you got all the information here, which only the health officials understand. That information is for the people. Can people understand? That's the focus we need to make, not what health officials want to be disclosed. Because at the end of the day, who's picking up that product is the consumers. Who's paying for the product is the consumers. Who's consuming the product is the consumers. Is the product having an ill effect on the health of the consumer? The answer is yes. So why shouldn't I know about that product? And what Dr. Wahid said just now, that is the information we are after. If you're going to put out, say, fizzy drink, if you can tell me that in 650 ml, there's 13 teaspoons of sugar, and you have to walk more than an hour, the choice is mine, whether I want to take that product or not. But are such information disclosed? This information is not given to the public. And that's why there is a move now to change the way the information is given to the consumers.
Dr. Khan, without getting too technical, say if I were to walk into a shop and decide to buy something which may not be entirely healthy, as the labels are right now, I don't understand them. What are some of the key points that I should be looking out for?
Difficult question, because the information that you want can be is given in a manner that you will not understand much of it. Now, if I were going to pick up a product, I would like to know how many calories it gives me. Okay, a gram of that, or maybe a teaspoon of that, how many calories it gives me. That means in terms of carbohydrate. People understand calories more than carbohydrates, you know. Then I'd like to know whether what sort of a cholesterol is in there. There are good cholesterols and bad cholesterols, okay? Is it saturated or unsaturated cholesterol? I'd like to know how much of sodium is there. Sodium is from salt, basically. Sodium and chloride make salt. So salt in its sodium increases your blood pressure. I would like to know how much of sodium is there, okay? I'd like to know how much of chloride is there, how much of potassium is there. I'd like to know if there is vitamins in there, what levels of vitamins are there. And then there are other very small minerals which can also be added on. I'd like to know what level they are. But even the best of people, the most educated might not be able to discern. Why don't we employ a very simple method of categorizing these products into saying good, bad, average, something like that. I know abroad we have got quite a few different types of messages which come up there. You know, they have a red, a green, and orange. You know, just like the lights and amber. So you choose the one which is green. You know, green means, but there has to be education at the same time. People have to be taught what green means, what red means, what amber means. So it has to be much more simpler than me reading it, because as the amount of information that is there is huge, but discerning it with my naked eyes is very difficult. I got to put lenses on to see them. And how many of us do that, you know? Oh, okay, I go in there, all right, I have been taking this for a long time, I'll take it. So there is a historical basis of buying too, you know. We buy something and we think it's okay. In the course of its development, its constituency may have changed. I don't know. I don't worry about it. But I should be worrying about it if I want to live a healthy life.
How much of a contribution do these food items make towards the increase in NCDs?
I'll be very, very frank with you. The issue of NCDs is not only food item, it's an attitudinal too, it's a lifestyle thing. It's very, very easy for us to buy processed food, pre-packed food, fast foods, and the majority of people, I tell you, I do a lot of employment medicals, and many of these places, you know, they don't get food from home. They go to the next door fish and chip shop. They eat that. Now, how many times has that oil been used to prepare the fish and chips? You don't know. Whereas you know what your wife or you have cooked, or how you have cooked your food at home. So what goes in there, you are aware of it. So the processes are so difficult, you know. How much in terms of numbers is difficult to assess, but if you see our lifestyle and the way we live, the studies that have been done, the STEP study are showing that less than 10% of people choose to have fruits every day. You know, I mean, hey, we've got seasonal fruits all the time, and we're supposed to be using them. So if less than 10% are, what's happened to the 90%? Either they're not taking it at all, or they're doing something else. So these are issues that we need to really take into grids and form opinions and form attitudinal change, not amongst, well, also amongst the health professionals, because we need to come out and speak plainly in a language which the people can understand for it to be understood, and from there on to have activities which can look at behavior change.
All right. On that note, Doc, we'll take another break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Before the break, Dr. Khan from Diabetes Fiji was talking about the food component, or what we actively decide is part of our diet or not. Pramila, I want to pose that same question to you. The Consumer Council of Fiji has a responsibility to Fijians, but Fijians themselves have a responsibility to themselves to decide what they consume.
Exactly. I agree with you that there is right to choice as well. But we need to understand that 80%, when you talk about obesity, 80% is food and only 20% is exercise, right? And when you look at the types of food, the alcohol, tobacco, and so forth, everybody eats food, not everybody drinks or smokes. Yet, when it comes to obesity and NCD, there's more control on tobacco as well as alcohol. Why no one is touching food? Food is the key component. And yet not much thought has gone around food. Okay, we agree that food is needed for survival. That's fine. But here we're talking about healthy food. How can consumers know what is healthy, what is not healthy? And that right must be given to consumers to make the decision at the retail point. And that information, if it's not there on the label, I cannot decide for myself. I'll just pick up the item because it tastes good. I'll pick up the item because my family can afford. So these factors will come in. But we need to move away from these factors and focus on how will consumers decide whether a food item is healthy or not healthy.
Are you saying that consumers will automatically start reading labels if we change the labels?
But that's a good question, if the label is changed. Of course, if the label is changed, and if somebody gives me a health star rating and tells me if a product has got more stars in it, it's healthy, I'll go for more stars because I can see the product has got 5 stars. Great, it's healthy. And if the product has got only 1 star, I'll know it's not healthy. So that's how easy we want the labels to be. And this is the direction the world is moving towards, because every consumer is not a nutritionist, they're not from the health faculty, they don't understand science, they're from the art background, but we all consume food. So it is for this reason we have to make the labels very simple.
If we change the labels, will people automatically, overnight, start picking up products and first checking for the labels? Or do we need to have an awareness and education program for that
exactly,
as well?
Exactly. There's going to be a lot of education awareness program
if the
labels are changed. Just like the refrigeration model. Currently there are stars on the refrigerators telling you how much energy the product will chew. So if it has got more stars, it's good for it because the consumption of energy will be less. So it requires education. And that's precisely what we have to do in the food industry. But for now, when you look at the labels, why people don't read? Because they don't understand the label. They don't want to know about the label.
But they weren't reading the label in the first place, regardless of what's in there and how it's written.
But if you look at the labels now, all the labels that I'm talking about in the marketplace, they're all written in the same way. Why would I read if I don't understand? That's the compelling question.
If we do change it and it doesn't get enough stars, people will stop buying and the companies will suffer.
That is the choice.
Profit will suffer.
That is the choice consumers have. And you are right, at the end of the day, consumers have to make that choice. After all, it's their health, it's their money. And consumers are definitely part of the economic development. It's the consumer dollars that contributes to the economy. You can't keep the consumers aside and just think about the profit. If you're going to think about the profit, where does this profit go? The companies, yes, they pay tax. But don't you think chunk of the money is going into hospitals? Who's paying for that? It's not just the company's profit, it's individual tax also which is collected, goes into hospitals, just to manage NCD.
Which was initially partially caused by...
Correct, wrong eating, wrong food labeling,
Dr.
non-disclosure.
Dr. Khan, apart from labeling and people knowing what they are consuming, is there a possibility of actually altering the contents of said, risky food items?
I think there is. There definitely is. I mean, if you look at salt intake, as I said to you
Well,
earlier.
I understand there is now a national campaign to
Right.
reduce salt
Reduce
intake.
salt
and,
intake.
and a lot of companies have come on board in that.
Yes. The companies who produce this food will have to work on flavor. Flavor is important. If it tastes good, I'll take it. So that's where the problem is, I think. If you can put in an alternate flavor, which is natural flavor, I think it'll serve the same purpose in inviting me to eat, and enticing me to eat, So I don't think there is any reason to believe that the companies cannot change the constituents of the food they are marketing and make it make it different in taste and lose business. I think there is all, because if you get a 5-star, hey, you're gonna sell. So what's stopping you from stopping at 1 star? Why can't you go to 5-star?
So we're talking about spending tons of money to alter your product, to change your product, just to get 5 stars, and that's not going to, in the short term, help the business plan.
Well,
But is that the right thing to do? Is that the right thing to do? That you're going to make profit on someone's health just because you haven't disclosed that information to the person? That's misleading. That's misinformation.
Are the companies doing it deliberately? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, it might not be a deliberate attempt now, because as I said, it's under the Food Safety Act, they're meeting all the requirements. Good luck to them. But we are saying, go beyond that, because we have right to information to understand what we are taking.
Would have been
That
good,
is the push.
Would have been good to have, I suppose, in retrospect, a representative from one of the companies here. But now that you've started, now that you've started this campaign, have you approached the companies, and what's the feedback like?
This is what we're going to have on the, we had on the World Consumer Rights Day. The companies would be there and all other parties. So we don't do anything in secret, because we are an advocacy organization and we just have to push for changes, and that's the change we would like to see, which is good for everybody. Remember, when the country, if you look at every household in this country, name one household that is free from NCD. In that family, somebody will be having blood pressure, diabetes, some problem associated with NCD. And if you look at the statistics for NCD, it is shocking. We need to change that. And one way to change that is focusing on food. Of course, physical exercise is there as well, which we can talk later.
All
So
right.
there are a number of components.
All right, Pramila, it's time to take another break. Welcome back to For the Record. Our guests tonight, the Chief Executive of the Consumer Council of Fiji, Pramila Kumar, and the Head of Diabetes Fiji, Dr. Wahid Khan, talking about World Consumer Rights Day, which incidentally happens to be today, and the theme is a consumer's right to healthy food. Now we've been having a series of discussions about healthy food, product labeling, and consumers' right to choose. So far as the choices, the choices in a supermarket, when you walk in, is there a good balance?
Not at all. Not at all. One has to go to the supermarket. I mean, if you are shopping, you'll see all this junk food, they are really at the eye level. All the good food you will never find. Why can't we have a healthy corner? in a supermarket.
Don't any supermarkets have that? I know for a fact that some supermarkets are making the push now.
They're making the push. But if you look at the healthy corner as compared to non-healthy shelves, what do you find? Very few products which are in the healthy corner, and about 75% is somewhere else, you know.
They're responding to consumer demand.
I don't think so. I mean, if you look at it, the bigger companies, what they're doing, they're selling the shelves. So if I want to display my product and at an advantageous position, I have got to compete with these bigger companies and pay large amounts of money to put my product in a central place to be seen. So that's one-sided affair, really, because I don't have the means to do that thing. I think we'd like to see diabetes corners or every supermarket creating a healthy corner where the goods there we can certify it and say this is what you ought to be eating, and then we see the difference. I think people will automatically, who need to go to that section, are diabetic, can easily go to the section, pick up things from there and know that he or she is taking the right thing, which is not going to make their diabetes worse. We need to create that sort of thing. We have not done it so far. I think that is on the plans for Diabetes Fiji to work with the supermarkets for this year and see the difference, But we have a competing interest. We have a competing interest from other major, organizations who buy the shelves.
Pramila, just going back to the question once again, you're saying 75% of the items in a supermarket are unhealthy and contribute to lifestyle diseases. But
I need to correct you there. What I meant was when you look at the healthy corner as compared to the other food items which is in the supermarket, the healthy portion is probably just 25% or even less. All other products occupy most of the supermarket. You see? So what I'm trying to say is, and he has correctly said, that it's the selling of the shelves too. There is another level of game within the supermarket industry. And that makes it harder for consumers to make the pick. Here, I think the key argument should be, are we making healthy choices an easier choice? Are we? We're not making healthy choice an easy choice. We are making unhealthy choice an easy choice. The way the supermarkets are presented, the way the marketing is being done, the kind of information that is given to consumers, it is all geared towards unhealthy choices. We need to shift that. We need to change that around.
It's a bit confusing, isn't it? Because Fiji, we have an abundance of natural, green products. We have seasonal fruit, as you mentioned, and vegetables of every kind. And yet, if you're living, say, in an urban center, Suva, for example, and you can't go out to a village or rural area to buy fresh vegetables, you should be able to find it in a supermarket.
Yes, but we need to also consider our lifestyle. In other words, most of us, those days are gone when the wives were staying home, the mothers were staying home and cooking food. People work for their survival, and most of the time they're out of the house. And so what is the easy option? It is the processed food. And is the processed food giving enough information to consumers whether it's healthy or not? That is the question.
Dr. Khan?
I think a lot of people also don't do their own gardening. The gardening can be such a easily done. I mean, you can plant things in pots and put them on the shelves, on the windowsill. I think a lot of people are becoming very lazy in terms of growing their own food. We have look at Suva. It rains all the time. You don't need to water your plants. You throw the seeds out there. They just grow by themselves. Bit of tendering. And everyone has access to a piece of land, they'd rather have flowers than plant baingan and bhaji, So people, when you say they don't have, and the other thing is, if you look at it, when our family come from abroad, Canada and the US, they just want vegetables. Hey, and here we are, we don't eat that which is readily available. I mean, I'm not saying you buy things which are imported, You go into the market, buy which is cheaper, and it's not very difficult. You eat things in season. It's not difficult. You eat fruits in season, not difficult. It's cheap. So, but if you have a taste for something expensive, that's your business. I have nothing to say about that. But the food is abundant and readily available. I think we are lazy if we don't want to go and pick it up, clean it, wash it, and make it to eat it.
And so how do we bring about this behavioral change?
Difficult one. The governments of the world have failed in terms of NCDs, okay? All over the world, NCDs are just increasing. And what we are doing with Consumer Council and other stakeholders is putting up what's called an Alliance for Healthy Living, which is launched. And the Alliance of Healthy Living constitutes of civil organizations like women's clubs, religious groups. We get them together, and that's where the behavior change can occur. The actual behavior change happens at the level of the family. Okay, we don't have the capacity to reach every family. We have the capacity to reach through the media, but the media has not been able has usage of advertisement and things like that have not been useful at all, because there is no behavior change at all. Your NCD is increasing every day, strokes are increasing every day. So the playing field now, the interface now is, if you can't go to the family, is at the civil society level. So we are engaging these people. In fact, if I may say so, the 5% increase in SSB taxation was due to the efforts of the civil societies. It was disorganized, but it was done through the efforts of the civil societies, and I take my hat off for that. If we can have an increase of 2.5% in taxation on SSBs, I think if we did a very concerted effort, we can get a 10% or 30% increase on taxation for SSBs. We can force the government to change its attitude in terms of labeling. We can turn the government, make the government change its tune in terms of importation and getting the right food on the shelves for us. So this is the way to go. The behavior change will come. I don't think, as I've always said, we can stem this NCD epidemic, but we cannot reverse it. That will be seen in the next generation. I think if we can do a generational change and start at the level of the home with the small kids, we'll see them. I may not be around to see it. I don't know about you, but but the next generation will be able to see the change, a massive change in the level of NCD.
Okay, we'll take a break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back once again to the show. Pramila, before the break, Dr. Khan was talking about how people need to make generational changes. But in the immediate term, with the efforts that the Consumer Council has undertaken with Diabetes Fiji to change the labels, would you propose that there be a change in the legal requirement for the labeling? Because as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, you're appealing for changes by the companies themselves. But what about making it a legal requirement for them to have clearly defined labels? And what's the government's feedback?
Actually, you're right. What we need is the legal requirement. We need to change the legal requirement. And some work is going towards that. But if any change will come about at this stage, it's more voluntary in nature, because the law has not changed when we're talking about star rating and whatnot. So if legally we change the requirement, then obviously we'll be able to bring about the desired effects that we're looking forward to. That is right to information to consumers. But looking at the discussions we had, I must say that multiple interventions are required. We cannot say that, okay, by changing the food label, we'll be able to see the change. Or just having a healthy corner in supermarket will bring about a major change in consumers. Or if we free up all the school parks, which is under lock and key currently, and I can understand why the school managements are locking their playgrounds. If we open it up, that will change, or reduce NCD, because they'll be doing physical exercises, or a place is available for people to go and play soccer, rugby, etc. So multiple interventions are required, and that should be the focus. It doesn't mean only one change can fix everything. So we have to look at various changes that are required that will bring about the desired effect, which is reduction in NCD and right to information.
Dr. Khan, you said earlier on that there's been a lot of awareness about these lifestyle diseases. The media's been doing their part. Diabetes Fiji, civil service organizations. There has, in recent years, been an active and progressive move towards making people aware. But do you feel, from Diabetes Fiji perspective, that people are they absorbing these messages?
I don't think they are, you know. I mean, say for example, the issue of amputations. We still, in terms of diabetic amputations, we haven't stemmed it yet. We are bringing in programs to look at the foot care, which for the foot care project, to look at the nurses looking after and inspecting the feet of all diabetics, you know, as a preventive measure, you know, so that they do not end up with sores and which become infected and get amputated. But the majority of people, they have a laissez-faire attitude towards their illness, you know. In my clinic today, I saw a guy who's had a toe amputation, and about 3 years ago, he comes back with another sore on his sole. And I'm saying to myself, you know, didn't you learn from that experience? Your toe is gone, and now your half the foot will go. So where is this? So what I'm harping about, you know, the medical profession is harping on as to how to stop it, but the change is not occurring. You know, the behavior change is not occurring. And the behavior change, I believe, can only occur if we go to the level of the family. Now, if we were proactive, had we gone to the family and talked to the wife, talked to the children, and said, these are the results if you do not look after. But we did not do that. We left the guy alone, okay? And he said, oh, okay, you know, I've got one down, you know, I don't worry about it. I don't think it's going to happen again. It happened. The poor guy, hopefully, you know, he'll survive. He might not have no amputation, but his sugar was high, you know. Yesterday, similarly, every day I see cases where, you know, people know of the ill effects, but they don't want to they don't want to change, you know. No matter how much counseling you do, you know, unless there is a huge disaster, then they change. By the time it's too late. You know, you see amputees crying and saying, hey, I should have taken more care of myself, you know. But it's too late, you lost. And the survival rate after an amputation is only 15% at 5 years. Out of 100, 85 died 5 years, you know. So, you know, why do you want to go through an amputation? These are issues that we need to really work at. And I firmly feel that we got to go to the nitty-gritties, go to the family level, start with children, start in the schools, you know. That's where the fight is going to be. It's not going to be you and I. We already set in our certain ways, you know.
The youngest diabetic in Fiji, I understand, is 12 years old.
That's a type 2, type 2 diabetic, you know. Type 2 is lifestyle disease. The youngest is about 2 years old, is type 1, which is lack of insulin as such. But yeah, when I came out of medical school ages ago, the type 2 diabetics were in the age of 50, 55, 60 and above, you know, lifestyle disease.
How does a 12-year-old, through lifestyle choice, how does a 12-year-old become diabetic?
It starts right from birth. If you do not give your child sugar, say for example, sugar is an acquired taste, salt is an acquired taste, they will not take sugar at all, right? They will not take sugar at all, they will not like sugar at all, because sugar adds that added calories to the body, okay? One. Number two, feeding bad habits, you know, we start giving fizzy drinks to children very early in their life, fast foods, you know, they will, if the parents are not hardy, they can throw tantrums, you know, and get whatever they want, and eventually bad eating habits, you know. And children in school, you know, what they do, they pool their money, they buy a bottle of fizzy drink and one loaf of bread or bun, and that's their lunch, you know. So, you know, that's their lifestyle, you know. And this is what results in NCDs at such a young age.
Just last question to both of you. NCDs, diabetes, it's not going to happen to me. It might happen to my neighbor. I'll be okay. Fiji attitude.
Yep. And that's what's hitting us hard. People think that, oh, my mom and dad didn't have it, I can't have it. Excuse me, forget it. genes play a role, but the environment plays an important role. What you put into your mouth is going to come back.
Pramila?
I think one has to just look around around the environment, or look around the neighborhood, look around amongst the relatives, and see how many of them have got NCDs. And if that statistics tell you something, then you better start changing your lifestyle. If you find families free of NCD, if you find your neighborhood free of NCD, if you find your relatives free of NCD, if you find your workplace free of NCD, great. You don't have to change your lifestyle, because all is good.
All right. Thank you very much. And on that note, we have to say goodbye. That's the end of the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us for the record at fbc.com.fj. And before we leave, a big Vinaka Bakalibu to both my guests, Pramila and Dr. Khan.
Thank you.
We'll see you next Sunday. Good night.